clearly believe there was a group of people working against you. Do you think President Obama was behind it?
I would say that he certainly must have known about it because it went very high up in the chain. I'm not going to make that statement quite yet, but I would say that President Obama had to know about it.
Wow. Let's bring in Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor, and the author of the book Collusion. He joins us today. Mr. Speaker, what do you make of the President of the United States saying that the last president before him had to know about what was going on?
Well, you know, I think this whole episode, if you take all of it, if you come up to the big picture, is close to insane. You want to suggest to me that the Attorney General has a private meeting with former President Clinton on an airplane in Phoenix for, I think, 45 minutes, and the current sitting President, Barack Obama, doesn't know about it? Excuse me, just take the press coverage. You think he woke up in the morning, looked at the New York Times, looked at the Washington Post, and he didn't call over and say, gee, Loretta, what were you doing having a secret meeting with the former President of the United States the week that the FBI is going to interview his wife on potential felony charges? Now, Barack Obama is a really smart guy. He was also sort of a control freak. You think the FBI said, oh, we're going to go get a FISA warrant, the Foreign Intelligence Warrant, in order to investigate an American presidential campaign. And nobody thought to mention to the incumbent president? You think that his national security advisor asked to unmask the largest number of Americans ever requested the National Security Agency to be made unknown, and the President of the United States sitting down the hall didn't know about it? I mean, only in Washington could the media put up these walls and pretend that Barack Obama must have been innocent. And Joe Biden, by the way, who was his vice president, may have known about it, may not have known about it. In Biden's case, he's so flaky, he would have known. He might not have known if he knew. So it's not fair to really pick on him. But Obama's really, really smart. And I think it's very unlikely, virtually impossible, that all this stuff went on and he wasn't in some way informed.
Will we be informed when the Horowitz report comes out or when all these reports come out? Will we know the truth?
I don't know. I hope so eventually. I think part of the American genius is that over time, grindingly, slowly, lots of stuff comes out that smart people thought they could keep secret. But I look at this as a historian. I look at the last 3 or 4 years, starting with Hillary deleting 33,000 emails and Bill Clinton getting $500,000 from a Russian bank, which apparently wasn't interference, of course, and then another Russian group giving the Clinton Foundation a huge amount of money while Hillary was helping deliver uranium contracts to the Russians. Now, none of that, of course, really counts because, after all, we all know that as good liberals, their hearts are pure. But everything from that point on has been wild. And I think if you were President Trump and you're sitting there and you're going, give me a break. Of course Obama knew about it. Of course, you think Loretta Lynch didn't know about it? I mean, she's sitting there. She's the Attorney General. How could she not have known a lot of this stuff?
Good point. All right, Dan?
Mr. Speaker, of course, we also had Mrs. Clinton involved heavily in promoting this Skolkovo Russian technology project, where some of the technology companies that went over to Russia were actually donating to the Clinton Foundation, which we later found out, according to some reporting, this technology project, they may have actually been stealing sensitive American technology while some of the companies were donating to the Clinton Foundation. I mean, where is that in the investigation?
Well, and again, remember how everyone was terribly shocked that the President Trump indicated he might or might not be involved in reporting to the FBI about a foreign government trying to give him something. Nobody then turned and said, well, if foreigners aren't supposed to be involved in the American campaign, how come the Clinton campaign was helping fund the Steele dossier being written by a former British secret agent? Now, somehow it's okay if you're a liberal and you hire foreigners to do research for opposition research, but we're all going to be terribly shocked if Donald Trump tells the truth. I think that's part of why Trump's base likes him, because in the end he cuts through the baloney. And people go, well, yeah, I mean, let's be honest about this stuff. Only the elites who always absolve themselves of anything because their heart is pure would believe this malarkey.
All right. Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. Sir, thank you very much for joining us live today. Lots to talk about. President Trump officially kicks off his 2020 re-election bid tomorrow, and we've got an exclusive sneak peek of his official 2020 campaign ad. Take a look.
This is a movement like we've never seen in the history of our country.
Wisconsin is Trump country.
And that's what this fight is all about. We're taking on the failed political establishment and restoring government of, by, and for the people. It's the people. You're the people. You won the election.
We love this country. We love Donald Trump.
Promises made, promises kept.
We support President Trump.
Well, joining us now is Kayleigh McEnany, National Press Secretary for the Trump-Pence 2020 re-election campaign. Hey, Kayleigh.
Hey, Ainsley.
Good morning. So we just saw a sneak peek of it. What do you think?
Well, what I think is that we focus on the American people over at the campaign. You'll notice all of these, dozens of socialists running in the Democratic field. They sit there and they take aim at President Trump. That's the name of the game in the Democratic primary. Well, as you heard just there, you heard about 5 mentions of the people. And when folks see our entire ad, they will see that this is a movement of the people. Yes, it's behind President Trump, but it's always been about the forgotten men and women. I think that ad makes it clear.
What's interesting is with the exception of one shot, I think we didn't see President Trump in that 30 seconds we saw right there. It's all about the folks.
That's exactly right. And when you watch the full 3 minutes, it's the supporters. You see the faces of the men and women. And yes, there are women, despite what the media will tell you. I go to these Trump rallies. I stand in the lines. I talk to the crowds. There's tons of women, people from all backgrounds. When I was in Wisconsin, where that ad was filmed, I went and there were people sleeping overnight in 40-degree weather, including a veteran who had been in intensive care for 2 weeks, but demanded to be let out to go to the Trump rally. And there he was sleeping overnight for this rally. Yeah, because he had called the VA hotline, and none other than Lara Trump called him back. And there he was at the rally to thank the president and the Trump family.
Kayleigh, the tax cuts worked. The economy's booming. Unemployment's at historic lows. Red tape's being cut. But when you look at polls, I was reading an article from a while ago in the New York Times. A lot of Americans don't believe they even got a tax cut, contrary to the data, which says they did. Do we, as Republicans, need to do a better job out there of getting the message out that this economy is due to a change from the older Obama liberal ways?
Absolutely, we need to be out there with that message because people take the economy for granted. We notice in all our polling when the economy is doing well, it tends to drop down in the issues of importance. But we can't take this for granted. As you mentioned, Dan, the Obama economy was much different. A loss of 200,000 manufacturing jobs. Wages were stagnant. Now they're growing twice as fast for low and middle income Americans and at the fastest pace in a decade. So yes, absolutely, so important, so key, as well as the healthcare message too.
Kayleigh, at the bottom of that video we just saw, it says to text Trump to 88022. What happens if you do that?
It's really important. That allows us to update our data. We have the best data in the business, Ainsley. That means that we know which doors to knock on. We're going to be able to isolate the handful of a few million voters who will decide this election. Because of that text, you allow us to update our data. You also get to be a Trump volunteer. What's better than that? Being a Trump volunteer and getting enrolled in the army of volunteers we plan to have, 2 million, in fact, which will be a historic number of volunteers for a presidential campaign that are trained.
Kayleigh, you mentioned polling a moment ago. The story over the weekend was that the president is not doing very well in his internal polls. And in fact, it sounds like, and you probably won't be able to confirm this, but it sounds like the campaign has fired a couple of polling companies because they leaked to some news outlets.
Yeah, we're not confirming our personnel decisions, but what I can confirm is the ABC and NBC stories about the leaked polling are more fake news. Yes, those numbers were accurate, but they were from 3 months ago. They were pre-Mueller report. They were the worst case scenario and the most unfavorable turnout model. But I can tell you, Steve, right now the president is leading in all 17 swing states against a defined Democrat. When the Democrats started mentioning socialism, when they started mentioning these radical policies, we saw movement toward the president. We're very comfortable with where we stand, so don't believe the stories you're reading.
So those leaked polls were accurate, you're saying, but they were from 3 months ago. So they weren't fake news, they were old news.
They were old news, and they were the most unfavorable turnout model. We have to predict who's going to turn out. So this is the most pro-democratic turnout model you could see. So it's understandable that that polling would look that way. But when you look at the real polling, the most accurate polling, defined Democrats, the president is leading in all 17 swing states, as he noted.
Okay. We'll be watching tomorrow. Amway Center, 20,000 people down in Orlando where the Magic play. Thanks so much, Kaylee.
Thanks, Kaylee.
Good to see you.
Thank you.